right, Pittsburgh, this is the Death Star here, and you are listening to MMA Fancast. Tune in.
Oh, baby, what time is it?
You're listening to MMA Fancast. Here are your hosts, Jim Mooney and Luke Payson.
Welcome to the show. Today I am joined by Jeromy, the Adonis Mitchell, who was on our show back in February, right before the lockdown happened for COVID. Jeromy, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it is great having you back on. It's nice to see that MMA is starting to get up and running again. I guess to jump in, you have a fight announcement that's still fresh, and it's an upcoming fight. Any type of sports news is big. So tell us, what's the fight announcement?
So I will be fighting September the 12th in the co-main event of Valor Fighting Challenge 73 for the bantamweight title, actually.
Ooh.
So I'll be dropping down a weight class.
And what state? Where's this hosted?
It'll be Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Tennessee. Okay, because I was going to say you are currently, according to Tapology, the 5th ranked featherweight in Virginia, and some of our listeners may remember you were going to fight in Pittsburgh. It was going to be an incredible card. Unfortunately, it got shut down the day of by the state, and that was going to be for 247 Fighting Championships, and that would have been March 13th. And you weighed in. We got to meet in person, which was nice, but you weighed in everything March 12th, and it looked like it was going to happen, and then last minute, the morning of the fight, it got canceled. So kind of take us from there. Now, obviously, we have the good news. We want to talk more about your title, making the bantamweight cut. We'll get into all this, but take us back to March 12th. Everybody weighed in. It was exciting. The arena was set up. Everything looked good. Kind of what was it like that Saturday, it getting canceled?
Oh, man. Ever since then, it's been just crazy. It picked up for me. Most people, I know it slowed down a little bit. But actually that morning, I woke up, everything was good, got straight out of bed, started my morning workout because I always like to do a little shakeout in the morning. And I just wanted to go ahead and kind of get it out of the way. Normally I do it after I eat breakfast, but I wanted to go ahead and get it out of the way so I could go ahead and, worry about my meals and stuff and get, focused for the fight. And I was feeling a little bloated from the night before. As everyone kind of knew from the post going into it, I had several little issues throughout that camp between just breaking my toe, which sounds like absolutely nothing. Really, it wasn't nothing, but it did hinder a lot. And the fact that I had a sinus infection, I was on antibiotics for that at the time, too. So I woke up feeling kind of rough that morning, so I just wanted to kind of go ahead and get it out of the way and see how my cardio was going to hold up that day. And everything, truthfully, was looking great. And as soon as we got done doing my shakeout, I had a text from a manager, Tammy, that said to call her, and I know that's never a good thing when it's this close. And honestly, I thought it was because my opponent, Fatty, had something happen, because from the looks of it, he had a very, not hard weight cut, but a very hefty weight cut. And so I was actually mainly concerned about his health, him being able to fight, one, because of, how it would put me out of another fight, but two, just, his health. I don't wish harm on anyone.
Right.
And so, calling her, and she gave me the news that the whole card was canceled, which was a relief considering his health, but
sure,
it's still a huge bummer. I've spent probably the next 20 minutes crying. I kept trying to get like a live video for Instagram just to kind of explain what happened, because there were so many people to try to contact before they made the drive to the venue, and some people had already, made it up there. And man, it was crazy. It was very disheartening, and it shows to, not take anything for granted. But Ryan and all the guys at 247, they were awesome. They still paid us show money even though they didn't have to. They took good care of us, put us in a nice hotel. Even came to the hotel, had a meeting, explained things, answered questions, took us out to lunch. It was, like I said, I couldn't say more good things about 247. So they handled it the best they could.
Well, yeah, and I'm glad to hear it directly from one of the fighters on that card, kind of how they responded. It was kind of the worst case scenario in many ways, other than injury or people physically getting ill, just with COVID hitting and it being enforced by the state within, if they had even given 24 more hours, everybody would have gotten to fight. But I'm glad to hear that Ryan and everybody from 247 did the best they could given the situation. And I do hope that you'll get the opportunity to come back up. I think 247, we have a lot of 247 fighters on this show, not exclusively. We do interview other people, but I do think 247, once it's up and running again, will have the capability to really be a good area for regional MMA, and I think you're going to be a big part of that. Now, take us to Tennessee and how this came about. And obviously, you fought at featherweight. Kind of, how are you doing? I've seen on Facebook that you do look lean and shredded. I didn't realize the fight was going to be at bantamweight, but that explains why you're going down there. How's everything looking with this current fight?
So it's mainly it started as soon as I got back home from Pittsburgh. I put zero time aside for anything else. I was driven. I was ready to fight, and getting that close to getting to do so just, I don't know, it was like it made my mouth water. Like I just wanted it more than ever. And so at that point, I decided that I was going to take it to the farthest level that I could. And I want to maximize everything I could do in my life to be the best fighter, not around here, not regionally, and I want to be the best in the world. And at bantamweight, I truly feel I'm already there. And so moving down was just a sacrifice that I would have to make within my eating, but I make every other sacrifice. I train hard. I prioritize, and I decided that this wasn't too much of a sacrifice to make as well. So that Monday I went back into the gym. I buckled down even more on my diet. After my fight in November, I focused really heavily on. At that time, I was training martial arts, but I wasn't working on conditioning at all, almost. And because I'd had so many pull-ups, it was hard to stay motivated. And we had spoke about this last time.
Yeah.
But Fatty being such a like a good opponent and somebody I knew was going to show up, it pushed me. And so I focused heavily on my martial arts and my skills training, but my diet was still trash. I was eating Baconator until I was 3 weeks out. And then, it got serious 2 weeks out as far as diet went, just to make weight. And so that was, the only stone left unturned for me was to buckle down my diet because I had in every other aspect. And I was super motivated by my wife. She lost over 50 pounds throughout the quarantine. So I was like, if she can buckle down on it, then I can too.
Yeah.
And so we kind of did it together. And she's such a positive motivator in my life. It's ridiculous. But so I did that and started coming down in weight. And I got to where I was walking probably around 155. And I had actually went up and trained with Fatty and a bunch of the guys over at the Academy and Matt Factory as well. And while I was up there, I got in contact with the woman that did his cut for mine and his fight. And she works under the George Lockhart program and all that, which is, it does nutrition for most of the UFC fighters. So I hired her and got her on board. And now it's like I'm eating all kinds of amazing foods and my weight's just falling off. And I was back to talking about my wife, she cooks every meal. That's what she's doing right now. She takes good care of me. And so the drop to bantamweight was the final straw I had to make, and that was the decision I had ended up making to finally jump all in. I would consider myself all in now. Mm-hmm. Whereas before, I'm in more than everybody else, but there was always this one doubt. You want to get rid of every doubt that you have before a fight. And now it's like I can go in there knowing that I did absolutely everything, and I can be the most confident version of myself. Like I said, at featherweight, I think I'm one of the best in the world, but one of the best isn't good enough for me, especially since I would go into all my fights giving up size.
Right.
So going down to bantamweight, I feel like being the bigger fighter and the better fighter, because I truly do think I'm one of the best in the world, that this will, put me on the big show in no time, especially after a big title win.
Absolutely.
So, but the champion actually that held the belt that I'm fighting for just made his UFC debut on a six-day notice, and actually fought to a draw in his UFC debut, but he got signed for multiple fights, which vacated the title. And the guy I was going to fight was already supposed to fight for the title previously, so they moved it to our fight being the title fight.
Mm.
So
Well, there's a lot there to unpack. Thanks for sharing at such depth. First off, congratulations to your wife for losing all her weight during the quarantine, and obviously for you as well. And I think it's a big thing that, motivation and opportunity comes together. And sometimes people don't see that, because I've seen all over social media the quarantine 15 or the quarantine 20, because people are kind of sliding the other way during quarantine. So I think you and your wife's story is a good story for people to hear and get encouraged that, like, there is more opportunity during quarantine. Even though people might be sliding out of healthy routine, there's actually more opportunity to do more healthy routine because the certain distractions have been removed. So congratulations to both you and your wife. And also, I think it's always important. You're an undefeated pro fighter. Your pro record counts. That's what matters. The amateurs are in the past. You're 2-0. Obviously, you've had a bunch of fights pull out. And obviously, Fatty's was circumstances outside of control. But we had talked about how I have met Fatty before your what you were going to do with your fight with him. And I knew he's on the bigger side, tall-wise, for 145. So what's it like training with somebody who you were going to fight? I know those guys up there are super great. I saw it on Facebook that you went up there to train with them. Kind of what was that like?
Oh man, you would have never even known we were supposed to fight with how seamless it was. And I don't just mean this through martial arts, but especially martial arts, but throughout life, he's one of the nicest people I've ever met. And just generally good. This man, welcomed me into his home gym, showed no animosity. We actually, our very first thing we did, we had a flow roll just to warm up, and we were both, and we discussed this after, kind of waiting on the other one to try to take advantage of, the fact that we were flowing, and neither of us did. It was a, very great training session, and honestly, it's and then just as well as the guys over at the academy, like Kama and John and all those guys, they're people that I look forward to training with often, at least once a month, every other month.
Sure.
But truthfully, you would have never known we were supposed to fight. He was super welcoming. Like I said, hooked me up with a nutritionist to use. We got some good training, and I don't know, it was all around good. Like I said, you would have never guessed we were supposed to fight. So.
Well, that is wonderful. Another thing that sometimes kind of gets smoothed out before people make it to Bellator or ONE FC or UFC, like you were mentioning, is all the other components. Regional MMA, outside of the big 3 or 4 promotions, a lot of times the fighters are still taking fights. They're fighting, like you were saying. You were training mixed martial arts, but you weren't necessarily on all of your points when it came to your diet and your strength and conditioning. And I do think, some regional fighters are still working full-time jobs. There's just a lot still going on. And a lot of times the UFC move, like Kama's a good example of this. I really think John DeJesus is going to be right behind Kama. It was a shame he didn't get to fight for his title, which would have been right during the quarantine as well. But I think a lot of times by the time people make it to the UFC, a lot of those things have been figured out, because they've been able to get it right on the regional scene. So great stuff, not only to Fatty being, nice and helpful to you and getting you hooked up with his nutritionist, but also that's another thing you've ironed out during your regional career, so that when you make it to the big level, like you're talking about wanting to be the best in the world, that's already handled. So that's a great thing. Speaking of your strength and conditioning, there was a video you put up on Facebook, and you're doing backflips, and you talked a little bit about your history with backflips in your childhood. So explain doing backflips and kind of how you're incorporating what would be more seen as like a gymnastic movement into your training.
Oh, man. So truthfully, what re-sparked the idea was GSP, just seeing him do it.
Sure.
And I was like, you know what? I never considered that being something I did for conditioning. Always something that I did, just like, hey, watch this. But actually, when I was a kid, because this isn't the first thing I've done as a profession, when I was 12 years old, I turned professional in what's called jam skating, which is breakdancing on roller skates, like 4-wheel roller skates. And so I used to do backflips and all that on those, and I competed at, world tournaments and everything back when I was 12. So competition is something I've been addicted to since I was a kid. And then, I kind of grew out of my skating days, got kind of into breakdancing, played around with it, didn't take it too serious. Got really into video games when I was like 13 as well, going through that transition, and actually ended up playing those competitively and placing eighth in a world tournament for that as well. And so, this is the competitiveness throughout different sports is all came through to fighting. And fighting just seems to be the one that I can't figure it all out, and breakdancing, it's like you learn it, you do good, you reach the top, and then it's boring. Same thing with, gaming. And then you come to fighting, it's like you never truly reach the top because it's all day by day dependent. But thinking back to, seeing him do those movements and thinking back to the movements I used to do, because there's certain abilities that I kind of came into MMA with naturally, but I never knew how. I always just blamed them on genetics. But it probably came from, the training as a kid to do breakdancing. So I've kind of decided to incorporate that same training into my martial arts training.
Mm. Well, it's great to see that. The two videos you posted, one was you doing continuous backflips, which I think was in like maybe the 6 to 8 range. And then the other one, you were doing a backflip into like a single leg shot takedown type thing. And so it was cool to see you do it both as it's sort of pure movement, just backflip upon backflip, but also see you chaining a backflip, which would be an explosive movement. You mentioned that you've been really, really working on your explosivity, which of course is a huge element of fighting, but oftentimes doesn't get used in such a unique way. So it's very cool. What can you tell us? What can you tell us about your, I guess, more or less your physical development since March till now? Because that's half a year. And so kind of what are you noticing about yourself as we head into this fight?
Definitely leaner. My speed is insane. I've never been this fast in my life. And truthfully, just physical development just seemed like everything kind of came together. I went into the year, and when I have a fight camp, I make it a purpose, like I said, no matter what, to never miss a session. So, I got diagnosed with the flu. Well, I made that sound like it was way more dramatic by saying diagnosed. But I got the flu. I broke my toe. I got a sinus infection all throughout the camp for fatty. And I made sure to never miss a training session conditioning, whether it was, me over there sounding like I had the death rattle on the air-down bike or, anything. I made sure just to get through it, even if my output wasn't as great as I wanted, mainly just for the mind, because the mind will become weak on you if you let it. And so I kind of went into the same idea as, like, even after that fight, to just stay ready and, be consistent. And I still haven't missed a single practice, a single conditioning session this year. And that means, like, every day, twice a day, no exceptions, no nothing. Even on the road, I took, conditioning tools with me to take to the hotel. So even after I went and trained with Fatty and them, I could go back to the hotel and do my conditioning, no matter how tired it was, because you can't let your mind get soft on you. So I think the physical development's, one thing. I'm the best I've ever been, but the mental development's where it's all really changed. It all came together to the point that before I could say I was one of the best in the world and I would be hopeful. Now I can say, as far as bantamweights go, I am the best in the world, and I'm by far the best unsigned bantamweight, and I can say that with complete confidence. And if I get signed, then I'll just be the best overall bantamweight in the world.
Well, yeah, it's great to hear the mindset, and that's what's so nice. And something that you've pointed out now twice is that this is your business, your career. You actually are super respectful. You are very violent and efficient in the cage. But I do think that there's more and more, I think, people that come into MMA with the right mindset of combining everything, making it a business, being super professional with it. That's a good attitude to have. What do you know about your opponent for the title? Shifting gears to that Tennessee title fight coming up September 12th.
So his name is James Adcock. He is 6-4 on 6-3 or 7-3. with a 4-fight win streak as of now. Between the two of us, we have 8 finishes. All of our wins, we have 8 wins, 8 wins, all by finish within the first round. All his losses come within the first or second round. I have no losses, so as far as what I know about him, he's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. He seems well-rounded. At bantamweight, I just don't think there's anybody on my level. And that's no disrespect to him. Like I said, he's very good. It's just, I've won fights throughout my whole career, always giving up size, and now that that's not a factor, I don't see it going outside of the first, maybe second, especially with the way both of our records look with so many finishes.
Well, that's exactly the confidence you have, which is great. And also, it's nice to see you fighting a pro, obviously, for a belt, but that is a good pro. That's an experienced pro. And so it's nice to be testing yourself, just like you were going to test yourself up against Fatty, who was, I believe, still undefeated, and you guys are both undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, this opponent has some defeats, but has quite a bit of experience. So that's just incredible. Let's go on kind of to what you think you're going to be kind of doing in the next, I guess we're basically down to a month. So what's kind of your plan as far as your training, as far as when you go down to Tennessee, what you know about their COVID preparations? Kind of let's look at that.
So I believe as far as their COVID preparations go, they are at 50% capacity. My fight will also be aired on Flow Combat. So I fully think you'll be getting a subscription to watch that one. But as far as me, I'm just going to stay at it for the next 5 weeks or 4 weeks. And, the conditioning and stuff will stay kind of the same. Just make sure that I peak at the end and let my body recover out. I can come back on after the fight, and I'll give more details that I don't really, I don't want to get too deep into right now.
That's fine. Yeah, of course.
But just kind of going to have a calorie decrease coming up soon.
Sure.
Just getting this weight off and making sure that I peak at the right time will be the big focus, mentally and physically. So.
Well, certainly, and obviously I meant that to be a broad, general viewpoint of the next month, of course. You mentioned that you'll come on afterwards. We would love to have you on, obviously, to talk about how the fight goes and also some of the behind the scenes when it comes to COVID. We've had a couple fighters on now that now that we're starting to open up despite the COVID restrictions. So it's always nice to kind of hear and see what different promotions are doing. So, it's been great having you back on the show. Obviously, everyone here at MMA Fancast wish you the best. We can't wait to have you back on the show, hopefully as champ. That would be incredible to have you back on as champ, and you can talk all about it. So give us what you want your last words to be as far as in this interview, whether it be thank yous or shout outs or predictions. Basically, the time is yours, and kind of leave us your parting point, so to speak.
Well, yeah, my thanks, get those out of the way, would be to, once again, my wife, like I said, she makes sure everything's taken care of. And without her, I truthfully would have, got a quarter of the development that I had. My coach, Derek Lambert, for the countless hours, Brett Summers, my main training partner, for the countless hours of training, and everyone else at the gym. Follow me on Instagram, Jeromy Mitchell MMA. Follow me on Twitter, Jeromy Mitch MMA, because apparently Jeromy Mitchell was already taken.
Okay.
So I'll probably have to fight that guy and get that one back. But
yeah,
man, predictions. Like I said, I imagine I'll put him out there within the first or second round. So.
Well, you've heard it here on MMA Fancast from Jeromy the Adonis Mitchell, his prediction, which we can't wait in anticipation to see that come to fruition. So thanks so much for taking time out of your conditioning and training, and obviously best wishes to you and your wife and everything that's going on with you guys. So thanks so much for coming on the show. Can't wait to catch up with you after the fight.
Yes, sir. Thank you.